The Galactic Council's discovery. The immense chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with an air of excitement, and perhaps a little trepidation. Thousands of species had gathered here for centuries to discuss matters of diplomacy, peace, and intergalactic cooperation. They were a diverse collective, beings with skin in every imaginable shade and texture, some translucent, others with skin like bark, scales, or feathers. There were those who could communicate through scent, and those who could speak with their thoughts alone. But despite these differences, all the members shared one common trait. They were herbivores. In the galaxy, peace was built upon a shared respect for nature and the protection of plant life. No species had ever strayed from this fundamental principle. Until now. As the image of Earth spun slowly on the grand screen, Ambassador Zora of the Merthians, a tall and graceful species known for their elegant forms and peaceful disposition, could not help but feel a shiver run down her spine. Her emerald green skin, which reflected the light like a polished gemstone, shimmered in the soft glow of the council hall's lighting. She was standing next to the enormous screen, pointing to various areas of Earth's surface, her voice filled with both curiosity and caution. "This planet," she said, her voice echoing in the hushed room, "is home to a species that we have just discovered. Their civilization is surprisingly advanced for a world still in its early stages of space exploration. They have large, interconnected cities, extensive transportation networks, and even rudimentary space travel." The other representatives leaned forward, their glowing eyes fixed intently on the planet's vibrant oceans, sprawling continents, and dense cities that dotted the surface. Earth was a breathtaking sight, a jewel in the void of space, yet there was something unsettling about it. The peace-loving representatives knew instinctively that something was different about this species. Their records had never mentioned a predator species as advanced as this one. "Do they possess any weapons?" Cran, the high-ranking delegate from the peace-driven Ryloths, asked in a low voice. His purple skin shifted as his elongated plant-like limbs rustled, as if sensing a potential threat. Zora's face darkened slightly. "We have not yet detected weapons capable of large-scale destruction, but their technology is still in a growth phase. They do, however, possess the ability to defend themselves with primitive arms and small-scale military tactics." The room fell silent at this new revelation. The Galactic Council had never encountered such a species, one capable of both creating technology and employing it in defense of their world. It was a dangerous combination. But still, the consensus among the council members was clear. These humans were not an immediate threat. After all, the vast majority of the galaxy's species had evolved from plant-eating creatures, sharing a deep respect for life and the ecosystems that nurtured them. Surely this new species would follow the same path. Council leader Cran, with his deep purple skin and tendrils that curled like vines, spoke with a calm authority. "We are a peaceful collective. We must offer them the opportunity to join our ranks. Perhaps they simply have not learned the value of true harmony with nature. I propose a peaceful mission to establish contact, to show them the benefits of our way of life." Zora nodded, her eyes scanning the faces of the other representatives. "I agree. We can help them understand our ways. Our first contact specialists have always succeeded in guiding new civilizations toward cooperation. Perhaps they are still in their early stages of understanding the interconnectedness of life. If we are careful, we may be able to offer them the wisdom they need." The council members looked at each other, considering the proposal. There was an unease in the room, but it was tempered with hope. The peaceful ways of the galactic species had created a thriving collective, and they believed that the Earthlings could eventually share in that peace once they understood the value of coexistence with all forms of life. The decision was made swiftly. Ambassador Lyra, a seasoned diplomat from the Merthian species, was selected to lead the first contact mission. She was known throughout the galaxy for her calm demeanor and her ability to bridge divides between even the most divergent species. As she stood to address the council, her flowing leaf-like robes rustled gently. "I will lead the mission," Lyra said, her soft, melodic voice resonating through the chamber. "We will approach them with respect, as we always do. But we must be prepared for their differences. We have much to learn from each other. Perhaps the humans are not so different from us after all." The council nodded in agreement, and preparations for the mission began. Part 1 continued. The decision to make contact. 2 days passed, and the starship Unity was ready for its journey. Lyra and her crew, consisting of diplomats and translators, stood aboard the sleek craft, looking out at the vast expanse of space. Their mission was clear: make peaceful contact with the humans of Earth, show them the benefits of galactic cooperation, and invite them to join the Galactic Council. As the ship hurtled through space at faster-than-light speeds, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. The stars around them flickered, casting an eerie glow on the crew's faces. Her assistant, Myko, a young Merthian with silver-green skin, looked up from his console and gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Ambassador," Myko said, his voice filled with optimism. "Humans are not so different from us. Our preliminary scans suggest they are highly intelligent and have a deep respect for their environment. It will be a smooth contact." Lyra smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Her thoughts were consumed by the potential challenges they might face. What if the humans weren't as peaceful as the scan suggested? What if they reacted to the offer of contact with suspicion or aggression? In all her years of diplomatic work, Lyra had never faced a situation quite like this. The Merthians had always been able to find common ground with other species, but what if these humans weren't so eager to join the greater galactic community? The ship's systems hummed gently as they entered Earth's orbit. The blue planet loomed before them, vast and vibrant. For a moment, Lyra's worries faded as she marveled at the beauty of the world below. She could see green forests, sprawling oceans, and massive cities that stretched across the continents. The Earth's ecosystems seemed alive, teeming with life in every corner. It was a planet of endless possibilities, a world that had the potential to contribute greatly to the galaxy's collective prosperity. "Ready for first contact?" Myko asked, his voice breaking through Lyra's reverie. Lyra turned to face him, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Yes, Myko. Let's do this." The Unity descended toward Earth's surface, and as they approached the atmosphere, Lyra's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. Would the humans accept their invitation to join the Galactic Council, or would they reject them out of fear or misunderstanding? Only time would tell. As the ship touched down gently near Earth's government headquarters, Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was it, the moment that could change the course of history. The ramp lowered, and she stepped out onto Earth's soil, feeling the cool breeze of this new world brush against her face. The humans who greeted her were not what she had expected. They were different from the peaceful, plant-eating species of the galaxy. They had hard, defined features and skin tones in shades of pink, brown, and black. Some had short, dark hair, while others wore long, flowing locks. They were an impressive sight, strong and resilient. But there was something about their eyes that unsettled Lyra. They were not as calm as the Merthians. There was a fire in their gaze, an intensity that suggested they had overcome many struggles to reach this point in their development. "Welcome to Earth," said a tall man in a suit, extending a hand. "I'm Mark Harrington, First Contact Specialist for Earth. It's an honor to meet you." Lyra hesitated for only a moment before accepting his handshake. "The honor is ours. Your world is beautiful. We look forward to learning from you." As Mark led her and her team toward their transportation, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting would not go as smoothly as she had hoped. Something about the humans felt unpredictable. But that, too, was part of the allure of this new species. Perhaps it was their unpredictability that made them unique, something the galaxy had never encountered before. They were about to embark on a journey that would test their beliefs, challenge their understanding of life, and shape the future of the galaxy in ways no one could have foreseen. The first steps of humanity's place in the greater cosmos were about to be taken, and nothing would ever be the same again. First contact. A world of surprises. As the Unity's landing gears softly touched the Earth's soil, a sense of gravity settled over the diplomats aboard the ship. There were no grandiose ceremonies or high expectations in the air. This was the first time any of them had been so close to a species that had evolved in ways they had never anticipated. Lyra stood at the helm, her sharp eyes scanning the planet before her. Though the surface was beautiful with vast forests, towering mountains, and bustling cities, there was a sense of unease in the air. "This world is full of life," Lyra murmured to herself, gazing at the sprawling cityscape in the distance. "But something about it feels different from the harmony we know." Maiko, her assistant, stood beside her, his eyes wide with curiosity and slight nervousness. "The scans show a thriving world, Ambassador. The humans have made significant advancements. I believe they are ready for our message of peace." The airlock hissed as it opened, and Lyra took a deep breath before stepping onto the lush green grass beneath her feet. The Earth's air was rich, fresh, and clean, almost intoxicating in its purity. For a moment, she paused to appreciate the simple, beautiful environment. The breeze brushing against her face, the subtle scent of flowers in the air, and the distant chirps of birds. If only she could forget the uncertainty gnawing at her, she would be able to immerse herself in the peaceful serenity of Earth. She was joined by her team of Myrthian diplomats, each one more eager than the last, though their eyes betrayed a subtle hint of unease. The peace-loving Myrthians had never encountered a predator species. As a society built on nurturing the balance of life, the very idea of eating another living being seemed foreign and wrong to them. Yet, here they were, standing at the precipice of a new era, about to meet beings who not only consumed plant life, but also hunted and ate animals. How could such a species have evolved to the point where they could travel the stars, join the galactic community, and still engage in such practices? As they walked toward the waiting humans, Lyra reminded herself that they were here to extend peace, to show these creatures that despite their differences, they could coexist with the galactic community. This moment was not just about understanding what the humans did. It was about discovering their essence, their ability to overcome their primal instincts, and to embrace something more advanced. Perhaps in time, they would come to see the error of their ways, just as many other species had done before. The humans who greeted them were a stark contrast to the peaceful Myrthians. They were tall, strong, and carried themselves with an air of confidence that seemed at odds with the gentler demeanor of Lyra's species. Their skin came in many shades, some like pale clay, others dark as midnight, and some with hair that curled, twisted, or flowed in ways that were unfamiliar. They stood together, waiting for the Myrthians to descend from their ship, their faces alight with curiosity. The leader of the humans, a tall man named Mark Harrington, stepped forward. He was dressed in formal attire, his expression open and friendly. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Lyra," he said with a warm smile. "We are honored to have you here. The world awaits your message." Lyra studied his face closely. There was an intensity in his eyes, a fire that spoke of a species accustomed to struggle, survival, and overcoming challenges. "Thank you, Mark," Lyra said, her voice calm, but she couldn't help but notice the gleam of sharpness in the man's features. "We are here to share knowledge, to learn from one another." The Myrthian delegation followed Mark toward the waiting transport. As they walked through the bustling streets, Lyra's senses were assaulted by the unfamiliar sounds of the human world. The air was full of the hum of machinery, vehicles whizzing by, large screens flashing with advertisements, and loud voices filled with a mix of excitement and urgency. The city felt alive, but not in the way the Myrthians were used to. There was a palpable sense of hustle, of something constantly in motion. Lyra glanced at Maiko. "These humans, they are unlike any species we've encountered." Maiko nodded, his face reflecting both awe and concern. "They are unpredictable, Ambassador, But perhaps that is what makes them strong. Their will to adapt and overcome seems unmatched. As they arrived at a large modern building, Earth's government headquarters, Lyra felt her heart race. She knew that the true test of this mission was about to begin. They were not just meeting these humans out of curiosity. This was the first step in determining whether Earth could join the Galactic Council, whether they would find common ground with a species so different from the others. But how could they, when even the simplest elements of Earth's culture, like food, were so alien to the peaceful Myrthians? Inside the building, they were greeted by a group of humans, including Mark, who led them toward a large dining hall. The humans were eager to make a good impression. "We've prepared a special dinner for you," Mark said as they entered the grand hall, a dazzling room filled with elegant lighting and the sweet scent of flowers. "We want to show you the diversity of our world, its culture, its people, and our food." Lyra's mind raced. What could they have prepared? The Myrthians were strictly herbivores, subsisting on plant-based diets, and while they had encountered some species that ate meat, none of them were advanced enough to have created such a global event. In her mind, the idea of consuming animals was unthinkable, a betrayal of nature's balance. She reminded herself that they were here to learn, to understand. They couldn't judge the humans before even breaking bread with them. As the dinner began, the Myrthians sat at the long table, their eyes scanning the spread before them. Bowls filled with colorful salads and platters of roasted vegetables filled the space in front of them. For a brief moment, there was a sense of relief. The food was familiar, comforting even. The Myrthians began to eat, savoring the earthy flavors of Earth's produce. Perhaps they were more alike than they had realized. But then, the main course arrived. The staff entered with silver trays covered in gleaming lids. When they lifted them, the Myrthian diplomats were struck silent. On each plate lay a perfectly cooked steak, the center pink and juicy, with small pools of red liquid gathering around the edges. Lyra's stomach turned, and she could see the horror in the eyes of her fellow diplomats. Root, one of the senior members of the team, gasped in shock. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her leaf-like hands reached out to touch the plate, only to recoil in horror. Mark seemed unaware of their discomfort. "This is a common dish on Earth, grilled steak," he explained, offering a casual smile. "It's one of our favorite foods prepared from livestock. We often raise animals for food. I hope you enjoy it." Lyra struggled to find words. The very thought of consuming another sentient being was alien to her. The Myrthians had evolved as creatures of peace, their society built around a deep connection to plants and nature. They respected all forms of life, but they could never bring themselves to take the life of another creature. "Please," Lyra said, her voice soft but firm. "We do not eat animals. We are herbivores. We only consume plants." Mark's smile faltered, and his brow furrowed. He realized the gravity of the situation. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think. We didn't ask about your dietary preferences. We can offer you a vegetarian option if you prefer." But the damage was done. The Myrthians sat in stunned silence, unable to look at the plates before them. This simple act of eating meat, something the humans seemed to do so casually, was a breaking point for the peaceful delegation. "Ambassador Lyra," Mark began carefully, sensing the tension, "I truly did not mean to offend. It's just, we've always eaten both plants and animals. It's a natural part of our evolution." Lyra struggled to mask the horror she felt. She couldn't understand how any species could consider this normal. How could a species so advanced, so capable of space exploration, still cling to such primal instincts? Could they, perhaps, overcome this? Could they ever see beyond their instincts and learn to value life the way the galactic community did? The meal continued, but the air was thick with unease. The humans ate their food without concern, but the Myrthians barely touched their plates. The conversation was strained, and Lyra knew this meeting, this first contact, would forever change her understanding of these humans. She had come to Earth with the hopes of teaching them the value of peace, but it seemed the humans had their own path to follow, one that might not be in line with the ideals of the Galactic Council. As the meal concluded, Lyra and her team were escorted back to their ship, their minds heavy with the weight of the evening's events. What had they learned about the humans? Could they ever coexist with such a different species? What awaited the Myrthians and the Galactic Council in the days to come? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth was a world unlike any other, and humanity was a species that would challenge everything they thought they knew about life, survival, and coexistence in the cosmos. The truth beneath the surface. The night air was cool and crisp as the Myrthian diplomats returned to their ship, Unity, their hearts heavy with the uncertainty of the events that had just unfolded. Lyra, deep in thought, walked silently at the front of the group, her emerald skin now dull, reflecting her inner turmoil. The glow of Earth's moon bathed the ship in soft light as they ascended the ramp, leaving behind the chaotic dinner and the unsettling reality of what they had just witnessed. As the ship's doors closed behind them, sealing off the strange planet and the humans they had just met, Lyra turned to face her team. "I had hoped to find something familiar, something that would make us feel at home," she began, her voice quiet, yet carrying a sense of sorrow. But what we witnessed tonight was not just the differences in diet. It was a reflection of their entire way of life. Her team stood in silence, their eyes somber, unable to fully express the shock they had experienced. Root, her assistant, sat down on one of the cushioned seats near the ship's central command console. She raised her thin, plant-like hands to her face, her delicate fingers trembling as she spoke. "I thought I understood the galaxy, Ambassador. We are all so connected. Every leaf, every branch, every species lives in balance with nature. But these humans, they don't see it that way. They don't understand the harm they're causing." Lyra took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising sense of frustration that threatened to overtake her. "It's more than just food, Root. What we saw tonight is a reflection of their entire worldview. The humans are complex. They are capable of creating beauty, of nurturing life, yet they also choose to consume it. The very essence of their survival contradicts everything we hold dear." Myko, a younger diplomat, leaned forward from the back of the room, his eyes wide with concern. "But Ambassador, surely they understand the consequences of their actions. They must know how damaging it is to take life for sustenance. How could they have advanced this far without understanding the value of balance?" Lyra's eyes softened as she looked at the younger diplomat. "I don't know, Myko. I don't know, but I do know that what we saw tonight was not a simple misunderstanding. Their willingness to accept the practice of hunting and eating other creatures is ingrained in their culture. They don't see it as a violation of balance, as we do. It's just a part of who they are." The tension in the room was palpable. The Myrthian diplomats had come to Earth with the hope of forging a bond with a new species, of teaching them the ways of peace and coexistence. But instead, they had found a species whose instincts seemed to contradict everything they had worked so hard to build in the galaxy. The idea of eating other living creatures was foreign, almost barbaric, to them, and yet the humans seemed to embrace it, as though it were an accepted part of their existence. "Maybe we misjudged them," Myko said softly, his voice tinged with a mixture of doubt and hope. "We've seen that they can be kind. Their city is thriving, their technology advancing. Surely they are capable of learning. Perhaps we need to give them time to understand." Lyra nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but what happens if they don't? What if they continue down this path, a path that seems so rooted in violence? How will we, as a species committed to the preservation of life, reconcile with that?" The room fell silent, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Lyra stood there, her mind racing with the possibilities. The Galactic Council had been so eager to open the doors to humanity, to extend the hand of cooperation. But now, everything seemed uncertain. Could they truly accept this species, knowing their way of life was based on the taking of life? Was it possible to bring these humans into the fold of the galaxy without compromising everything the Council stood for? A day of reflection. The following morning, Lyra gathered her team in the ship's central conference room. They sat around the sleek, crystalline table, their faces tired, but determined. Despite the overwhelming events of the previous night, they still had a mission to complete. They were here to establish contact, to show the humans that peace was possible. It wasn't just about the food they ate. It was about understanding each other, finding a way to live in harmony despite their differences. Lyra stood at the head of the table, her eyes sweeping across the room. Last night, we witnessed a shocking truth. The humans eat meat. They take life to sustain their own. This is not a practice we are familiar with, and it shakes the very foundation of our beliefs. The diplomats nodded, their expressions somber. Root, still pale from the shock, spoke up. But Ambassador, could it be that we misunderstood them? Maybe they don't see it as we do. Perhaps their relationship with nature is different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Lyra looked at her with a pained expression. I don't know, Root. It's hard to accept, but we can't ignore what we saw. If they truly value life, as they claim, why would they kill other creatures to survive? It's hard to reconcile that with the peaceful civilizations we know. Meko, ever the optimist, interjected, but Ambassador, they have shown kindness. They've built cities, advanced technologies, and even seemed willing to share their culture with us. Maybe they don't fully understand the consequences of their actions. Maybe they need our guidance. Lyra considered Meko's words carefully. Perhaps you're right, Meko. Perhaps they don't understand the consequences. We are a species of peace. We've evolved over millennia, learning to live in balance with nature. But these humans, they are so different. It's going to take more than just words to convince them of our way of life. Her mind wandered back to the dinner. She had watched, horrified, as the humans ate their steak with such ease, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. She had seen the glimmer of pride in their eyes as they enjoyed their food, oblivious to the fear and shock it caused in the Myrthian delegation. How could they not see the pain they were causing? Did they even understand the concept of life and death as the Myrthians did? A decision must be made. The moment of truth came the following day when the Myrthian delegation met with Earth's leaders to discuss the future of their relationship. Lyra and her team stood at the heart of the United Earth government's main chamber. The humans had prepared a new diplomatic session, eager to resolve the tension that had been created during their first dinner. The room was large, filled with an array of human leaders, scientists, government officials, and experts in various fields. Mark Harrington was there as well, standing beside the humans who had served the Myrthians their meal the night before. Lyra began the meeting, her voice calm but firm. We have come to Earth with a message of peace, but what we saw yesterday, your consumption of meat, has left us questioning how we can proceed. As a species, we believe in the sanctity of all life. The act of taking life to sustain oneself is difficult for us to accept. Mark's expression shifted slightly, his brow furrowing as he listened. Ambassador, we understand your concerns, and I apologize again for not considering your dietary preferences, but I assure you, we do not take life lightly. We have moral codes that govern our relationship with animals. We have strict regulations on how we raise and treat them. Yes, we consume animals, but we also love them. We protect those that we don't consume, and we try to ensure that no life is taken in vain. Lyra's gaze softened slightly, but her skepticism remained. But it's not just about regulations, Mark. It's about the underlying philosophy. How can you, reconcile the act of taking life with the peace we hope to achieve? Can your species learn to live in harmony with all living beings as we do? Mark hesitated, the weight of the question hanging in the air. I don't know, Ambassador, but I do know this. We've already started to change. More and more humans are choosing plant-based diets. We are developing technologies that allow us to mimic the taste and texture of meat without harming any animals. We are learning, evolving, and willing to listen. Lyra studied him for a long moment, feeling the quiet tension between them. Maybe the humans weren't as hopeless as they had seemed. Perhaps, like all species, they were capable of change. Perhaps the key wasn't to reject them outright, but to guide them slowly toward a better understanding. Lyra stood taller. "We will give you a chance, but you must understand. It will take time. Change does not happen overnight. The road ahead will not be easy. But if you are willing to listen, we are willing to help you." Mark nodded, his expression both relieved and determined. "We are ready, Ambassador. Let's find a way to make it work." And with that, a new chapter in the galaxy's history began to unfold. It was uncertain, fraught with challenges, but it was a beginning where both predator and prey might one day walk side by side. The path to understanding. The days following the tense dinner were filled with deep contemplation. Lyra and her team spent hours discussing the humans' behavior and the shocking truth of their predatory nature. Back on the ship Unity, the Myrthians huddled around their consoles, replaying every moment of their first contact with the humans. The question that lingered over every conversation was whether they could ever bridge the immense cultural gap between the peaceful ways of the Myrthians and the more primal instincts of the humans. Despite their doubts, Lyra remained resolute. "We are here for peace," she would remind her team. "We cannot turn back now. If we do, we risk losing any chance of guiding them toward a more harmonious path. We've always believed in the potential of species to change. Maybe it is time to put that belief to the test." Meanwhile, on Earth, Mark Harrington, the Earth First Contact Specialist, worked tirelessly to mend the relationship between his species and the Myrthians. His people were just as confused and unsettled by the revelation of their dietary practices as the Myrthians were. Though Earth's culture had been built on the notion of survival at any cost, many humans had already started questioning the ethics of meat consumption. It was only a matter of time before the majority of the population would choose plant-based alternatives. "I have to admit," Mark said to his colleague Sarah, as they sat in his office, poring over the messages from the Galactic Council, "I never realized how deeply this could affect our relationship with them. We've been so focused on making technological advancements, but we never truly considered how others might view our way of life." Sarah, who had been involved with diplomatic relations for years, nodded in agreement. "It's going to take time to prove to them that we can be trusted, but we need to show them that we are evolving. We must demonstrate our willingness to change and respect their values." Mark stared out the window, lost in thought. "I've never faced a challenge quite like this before. It's not just about changing policies. It's about shifting an entire way of thinking. For centuries, we've seen ourselves as hunters, as a species that needs to take from the earth to survive. How do we show them that we can change?" The Council's decision, a test of humanity's evolution. Back in the Galactic Council's chambers, the debate surrounding Earth's membership in the galactic community reached a boiling point. The Myrthians had sent their report on the first contact, and it was not received well. The room was alive with heated discussion, as delegates from various species questioned how Earth could possibly be welcomed into the peaceful galactic fold. "How can we accept them?" demanded Zilara, a delegate from the tranquil planet of the Loria, her silver skin gleaming as her thin tentacles twitched in agitation. "They eat meat. Their very existence goes against the natural order of the universe. How can we trust them when they have no respect for the sanctity of life?" Lyra, standing before the council, felt the weight of their judgment bearing down on her. She had hoped that the Myrthians' report would be seen as a mere misunderstanding. But now, it seemed the council members were preparing to cast Earth out entirely. "Are they truly beyond redemption?" Lyra asked, her voice calm but laced with a sense of urgency. "We have seen their potential. Humans have created thriving cities, advanced technology, and beautiful art. Surely they can evolve beyond their primal instincts. We cannot judge them solely by their dietary choices." Her words were met with murmurs of disagreement from several delegates, but some were beginning to soften, intrigued by her defense of humanity. Council leader Cran, the wise and respected representative of the Xylox system, raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Lyra speaks with conviction, he said, his voice low but steady. Perhaps there is something to what she says, but the question remains, how will we guide them? Can we trust that they will truly change? Lyra's eyes scanned the faces of the council members. I believe they can, she said firmly. But we must be patient. We must show them that peace is possible without violence, that life can thrive in ways they have yet to fully understand. Cran leaned back in his chair, considering her words carefully. We will offer humanity a trial period, he said at last. We will give them a chance to prove their intentions, but they must show us that they are truly willing to change, that they can live in harmony with all forms of life. The Council will monitor their progress and decide their fate based on their actions. The decision was made. Earth would have its trial period, and the future of humanity in the galactic community would depend on their ability to evolve. A plan of action. Earth's commitment to change. The decision was bittersweet for Lyra. She had wanted to believe in humanity's potential from the beginning, but now the pressure was on. If Earth failed to meet the Council's expectations, it could mean a permanent ban from the Galactic Council, and the loss of any hope for true intergalactic peace. Back on Earth, Mark received the news. The Council had given them a chance to prove that humans were more than just hunters, more than just creatures capable of taking life. It was a daunting challenge, but one that he was willing to take on. We need to change, Mark said, his voice firm as he addressed a group of Earth's top leaders. This is our moment to show the galaxy that we are capable of evolving, that we can be trusted. We must commit to reducing our reliance on animal products, embracing plant-based diets, and advancing technologies that support a peaceful coexistence with all forms of life. One of the leaders, a woman named Dr. Rebecca Lee, an expert in environmental science, stood up. Mark, we've already made strides in this direction. We have developed alternative meat products, and our cities are becoming more sustainable. But it's not enough. We need to show the galaxy that we understand the impact of our actions. We need to set an example. Mark nodded. I agree. It's not just about the food we eat. It's about the mindset. We need to show that we can take care of the planet, that we can live in balance with nature. If we can do that, then we'll earn the trust of the Galactic Council. The following weeks were a whirlwind of action. Earth's leaders and scientists collaborated to fast-track developments in plant-based food technologies, launching large-scale campaigns to educate the public on the importance of reducing meat consumption and the environmental impact of agriculture. Across the globe, citizens were encouraged to adopt more sustainable practices, from farming to waste reduction. The media was abuzz with debates and discussions. People on Earth were beginning to question long-held beliefs about food, about survival, and about their relationship with the planet. In every corner of the world, the seeds of change were being planted. But change was never easy. The transition was met with resistance from many who had grown up in a world where meat was a staple of their diet, where hunting and animal husbandry were part of their cultural identity. Yet in the face of this challenge, there was a glimmer of hope. More humans than ever before were beginning to question the way they had lived, and many were eager to adopt new ways of thinking. A turning point. The offer of unity. As Earth began its transformation, the Myrthians watched closely. Lyra knew that time was running out for humanity to prove their sincerity. The Galactic Council was patient, but it would not wait forever. One day, as Lyra sat at her console aboard the Unity, a message arrived from Earth. It was a video message from Mark Harrington. He stood before the camera, his expression sincere and determined. Ambassador Lyra, he began, his voice steady. We have listened. We have taken your words to heart, and we are committed to change. Humanity has begun its journey toward peace, not just with each other, but with the planet and all the creatures that share it with us. We've reduced our meat consumption, and we're developing new technologies that will allow us to live in harmony with nature. But we know that words are not enough. We must show you our actions." The video shifted to show footage of new agricultural technologies, plant-based foods, and sustainable farming practices. People on Earth were working together to create a future that was aligned with the values of the Galactic Council. The footage was a clear sign of their progress, but Lyra knew it wasn't enough to simply change policies. It was about changing hearts and minds. Lyra sat back, taking in the message. The humans were trying. They were evolving, albeit slowly. She could sense the sincerity in Mark's words, the effort they were putting into making a real, lasting change. She stood up from her chair, her decision made. It was time to return to Earth. The path to understanding was long, and the road was fraught with obstacles, but humanity had taken the first step. Perhaps with time, they could prove that even the most primal instincts could be tempered by the desire to create a better world, a world where predators and prey could coexist in peace. As Lyra prepared for her next journey to Earth, she knew one thing for certain. The future of humanity and the galaxy was now in their hands. The struggle for change. As the days on Earth grew warmer and the winds of change began to stir, Mark Harrington and his colleagues felt the weight of their mission pressing down on them. The task ahead was monumental. Not only had they promised the Galactic Council that humanity would evolve, but they had also made a personal commitment to themselves to prove that their species could rise above its primal instincts. But change was never easy, especially when it involved shifting deep-seated cultural practices that had been in place for centuries. The media buzzed with excitement and skepticism as citizens from all over the world rallied behind the idea of reducing meat consumption. On the streets of major cities, advertisements touted the benefits of plant-based diets, with slogans like "Eat Green, Live Clean" and "Sustainability Starts With You." Social media platforms exploded with debates over the ethics of eating animals, and influencers with massive followings began to promote plant-based lifestyles. Despite the enthusiasm from many quarters, there were still pockets of resistance. Across the globe, in rural towns and farming communities, the message was met with skepticism. For many humans, hunting and farming were not just ways of acquiring food. They were a way of life, woven deeply into their cultural fabric. The idea of giving up meat, or worse, the concept of viewing it as morally wrong, was incomprehensible to some. "I've been raised on this," said Victor, a rancher from a small town in the Midwest. "My family's been farming for generations. We take care of our livestock, and we're responsible for them. It's a part of who we are. You can't just tell us to stop eating meat." His words echoed in the hearts of many, who felt that the move to reduce meat consumption was an attack on their traditions and livelihoods. For them, the idea of humans being judged for eating meat was as incomprehensible as the notion of a galactic community that included peace-loving species who could never fathom the complexities of human evolution. The tension grows. The tension between those advocating for change and those resisting it reached a boiling point when a prominent leader in the anti-vegan movement, Senator Grace Wilkins, delivered a fiery speech on national television. "We cannot allow an intergalactic body to dictate how we live our lives," she proclaimed. "Earth is our planet, and we will not be cowed into submission by creatures who don't understand the first thing about our survival. They are overstepping, and we must reject their attempts to control us." The speech sparked outrage among both the population and Earth's leaders. The growing divide threatened to undermine the efforts of the Galactic Council's mission. Mark and his team scrambled to quell the growing discord, but it was clear. Not all humans were ready to embrace the changes required for integration into the galactic community. "This is not just about food, it's about survival, history, and identity," said Dr. Rebecca Lee, the environmental scientist who had been working alongside Mark. "If we allow our society to be divided over something like this, we risk losing the unity we need to prove ourselves to the Galactic Council." The media storm continued to intensify, but Mark and Rebecca refused to back down. They organized town hall meetings, educational campaigns, and community outreach programs, attempting to bridge the gap between those advocating for change and those clinging to their old ways. Still, there was an undercurrent of fear. Fear of losing their autonomy, fear of alienating their cultural roots, and fear of being judged by a distant galaxy that knew nothing of the human experience. Lyra's return to Earth. Back in the Galactic Council, Lyra and her team anxiously watched the unfolding situation on Earth. Despite humanity's promises and efforts to evolve, the ongoing strife between the opposing factions raised doubts. The Myrthians, as a species built on understanding and peace, found it difficult to watch this struggle play out, especially when it involved the very core of humanity's identity. They had hoped that a diplomatic approach would help ease tensions, but it seemed that Earth's evolution required more than just guidance. It needed internal change from within, and that process would be long and painful. Lyra had never faced such a delicate mission. She had seen countless species overcome their own primal instincts to reach a higher state of peace, but none had done so in such a public and politically charged manner. As the appointed ambassador of her people, it was her duty to ensure that the Galactic Council's values of peace and understanding were upheld. Yet, as she prepared for her return to Earth, she realized that humanity's struggle was not simply about food. It was about identity, pride, and the fundamental nature of what it meant to be human. Stepping aboard Unity once again, Lyra reflected on the progress humanity had made since her last visit. They were trying. They were making strides. But would it be enough? As the ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, Lyra could feel the weight of her mission pressing upon her. The fate of humanity's place within the Galactic Council rested in her hands. She was determined to help guide them, but she knew that only time would tell if they could truly evolve. The turning point. Mark greeted Lyra and her delegation at Earth's government headquarters, but the atmosphere was different this time. The tension was palpable, with leaders and citizens on edge. News reports on the recent protests against the push for plant-based diets filled the air, and the rift between the factions had only deepened. Yet, Mark was resolute. "We can still make it work," Mark said as he met with Lyra privately before the public summit. "I understand the challenges ahead, but I believe that humanity can evolve, if not for the Galactic Council, then for the future of our planet. We must learn to live with respect for all life, not just human life." Lyra studied Mark's face. She could sense his conviction, but also the weight of doubt that lay beneath. "You've made progress," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "But the Council will need more than promises. We need to see concrete action." Mark nodded. "We've already begun developing plant-based alternatives to meat on a massive scale. Our food production industries are adapting. But more than that, we're changing our culture. Some may resist, but the majority of humans understand that we must evolve. There's a generational shift happening right now, one that will lead us to a more peaceful coexistence with nature." Lyra's gaze softened. "I believe you, Mark, but the Council will need to see this evolution not just in policies, but in your very way of life. Actions speak louder than words." With the clock ticking and the fate of Earth's membership in the Galactic Council hanging in the balance, Lyra and Mark agreed on a plan. They would launch a new initiative, one that would prove humanity's commitment to peace, a global campaign to reduce humanity's reliance on animal agriculture, and a demonstration of how humans could live in balance with nature without resorting to violence. The initiative would be ambitious, spanning across all continents and targeting the heart of human agriculture. It would require global cooperation between governments, businesses, and citizens, all working together to transition Earth to a more sustainable plant-based future. The Campaign for Peace. As the campaign kicked off, Earth's citizens were divided. On one side, activists, environmentalists, and progressive leaders cheered the initiative, seeing it as the opportunity for humanity to prove itself capable of changing its ways. On the other side, there were protests, arguments, and fierce resistance from those who saw this as a direct attack on their livelihoods and way of life. It wasn't just about changing food choices, it was about altering the foundation of human culture. Traditions that had lasted for centuries were now being questioned. Rural farmers and ranchers were being asked to adapt, to shift their focus from livestock to plant-based crops. Meat industries were pressured to invest in lab-grown alternatives, creating food products that mimicked the taste and texture of meat without killing animals. It was a slow process, fraught with difficulties. The resistance was strong, and the old ways were deeply ingrained in the human psyche. But there were glimmers of hope. As more cities adopted plant-based options in their schools, as more farms shifted toward sustainable practices, and as young people began to push back against traditional diets, the campaign began to gain momentum. Mark and Lyra worked together tirelessly, meeting with Earth's leaders, scientists, and activists. Every day was a battle, facing not just the political challenges, but the emotional weight of change. Earth's citizens were being asked to rethink everything they had known about themselves, to reconsider their relationship with the world they inhabited. It was a journey that required empathy, understanding, and above all, patience. The day came when the Galactic Council would meet again to discuss humanity's progress. As Lyra prepared to deliver her report, she looked out over the Earth once more. The planet had changed, and humanity had taken a step toward a more peaceful, sustainable future. But there was still much to be done. As she entered the council chamber, the weight of the moment hung in the air. The next chapter in the galaxy's story was about to be written, and humanity was right at the center of it. The future of humanity. The struggle for change was far from over. But as Lyra spoke to the council, she felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had embraced the challenge of evolving, of breaking free from its old ways. They had committed to a future where peace and coexistence were not just ideals, but realities. Earth is no longer just a world of predators, Lyra said, her voice clear and strong. Humanity has taken the first steps toward a future where they can stand alongside the peaceful species of the galaxy. They are evolving, and they are ready. And as the council's members listened, they knew the truth. Humanity, though flawed, had the potential to become something extraordinary. The future was uncertain, but the path ahead was filled with promise.